So yeah, do you see that live has started? Let's see. It usually there is a delay of like 10 seconds until it appears on YouTube. So yeah, it's there. So let's get some confirmation from people. Okay, yeah, I think it's all good. All right, guys. Can someone please confirm that you can see us in the comment section, please? All right. So yeah, they can see and hear us. All good.
Good.
So Shiva, OP. Yeah, Selector Sub Sanjay. Sanjay is here. So thank you, Sanjay, for joining. I mean, you have built such a great product. I mean, yeah. All right. So I'm a bit nervous today, guys. This is sort of a dream come true. I don't know how to start, but yeah, I mean, I haven't prepared anything as such, but it's just um, I always had this thought that the person from whom I started learning software testing is Dorothy, and it's through this book. So this is the first edition of software testing ISTQB. That is still there with me, and it will be there with me all. I think all my life it will be with me, and I still refer it very actively to share the knowledge, to brush up things, and there is no need to introduce Dorothy. I think everyone in the software community, testing community, knows her. So this is something to, as I completed a 50,000 subscriber milestone, I always had this thought that I'll dedicate this whole work and things that I do to the mentors that have made it possible, that from whom I actually acquired. So thank you very much, Dorothy, for accepting this invitation and being here with me. Sharing the stage with you is something, a dream come true for me, and I can't express words. So welcome and thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much. 50,000 subscribers. Wow, that's amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. And I think it's all possible because of the leaders like you who have actually not only kept their knowledge with them, they have actually shared it through the book, through articles, which we go ahead and read, and actually through our experiences try to um, add more whatever we have learned in our
Mm.
career journey and share it back. So it's not one person's journey. It's actually everyone who has basically was subscribed and shared their knowledge, and mentors like you. So yeah, so let's basically get started. I mean, anything. I mean, I have some set of questions which I would like to ask,
Go ahead.
um, and
Mm.
and they are really difficult ones. Uh,
That's fine.
so,
I'll
so
do it
I'll
next time. I'll do the best I can.
and these are some very pressing questions. Sometimes some of them are which nobody wants to touch. So I'll ask you. And first thing I would like to know is how did you start your software testing career journey?
Well, I got into software testing by accident. I had been studying maths and I was going to be a teacher. But then I thought all I've ever done has been in a school, so maybe I should go out and see what the real world looks like.
Mhm.
So I got a job with Bell Labs in New Jersey. I'm originally from the States. I was born in
Ah,
Grand Rapids, Michigan. So I got this job in New Jersey, and they put me into the test group for a project which was they had about 40 developers developing software to interpret signals that came from under the ocean from hydrophones.
Hmm.
And I was in the test group with a couple of guys who were experts at reading these low fargrams, and they were checking whether the software was doing the right thing. And they asked me to write a program to run some tests and a
Hmm.
program to check the results. So I got into testing and test automation in my first job quite by accident.
Oh, great.
That's how I got
And
into it.
yeah, and what did you that time? What script you wrote to automate? Like,
Well, there weren't any tools around at that time. This is in
yeah,
1970.
right.
And so I was writing in Fortran, and it was
Oh,
for a mainframe, and we had punched cards, and you had a
yeah.
huge box of cards. And if you dropped them, you were in real trouble because then they got out of sequence and your whole program was a mess. If you got one turnaround a day, sometimes two if you were really lucky. You know,
Oh,
put
wow.
the, put the,
Okay.
put the job in for a batch job and then get the results back maybe 6 hours later. So it
Wow.
was so different than things are now. It's just unimaginable. And the thing is that the software that I wrote, I don't think I've ever really been good at writing software, and it was total spaghetti. It was terrible code. And in fact, I think I probably may have written some of the first shelfware because no one ever used it again after I left.
Right. Okay. But it's amazing, like how the automation was done that time. I wasn't even born
Mm.
that that time
Oh,
when you
yes,
actually
quite.
wrote your 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 first code. I mean,
Mm.
and landscape has changed so much now. I mean,
Oh,
when we
yeah.
talk about automation, it's nobody would imagine that it was something on the mainframes and punch cards and sort of
Um, and everybody
manually.
just wrote their own. They
Yeah.
just called them utilities. They didn't call them tools.
Right. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
just wrote them
Yeah.
all specifically for your own, whatever it was that you were testing.
Right. Great. Great. Okay, that's very amazing thing to know about about the first sort of automation test that you wrote. Um, Now coming back to this uh, book and your writing, basically you have written so many books on software testing, and they are sort of I would say they show path to the testing community to actually get into an it's for me, and I think it's for thousands and millions, I would say, testing community. They actually hold this certification ISTQB, and they have read your book. So, what motivated you to write these books and work for the community?
Um, well, I think I've always enjoyed writing, and the first things I wrote were for the National Computing Center. After I left Bell Labs, my husband and I moved to England. He was British, and we've lived here ever since. And I worked for Ferranti for 7 years, and I was interested there in uh, doing some testing, and not many people were interested in it. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. And then I went to the National Computing Center, and I wrote a couple of little booklets for them, one on
Right.
VV&T, as we called
Oh,
it.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I wrote one for them on software tools. There were
Right.
25
Yeah,
tools in that little
yeah,
booklet.
yeah,
That's when the first commercial tools were coming out. This is in the 80s. And then in 91, I wrote this, which was
yeah. Computer aided
asked
software.
for
Yeah,
computer-aided software testing.
yeah,
And that,
yeah.
again, was just a list of commercial tools. So having
Right.
written some myself, I had an understanding of how they basically worked. So that
Hmm.
was this was before the internet. You couldn't just look anything up online. You had to
Oh,
get a
yeah,
book in
yeah,
order to look
yeah.
something up. So that was the first edition was published in 91. Then my
Right.
first book was actually with Tom Gilb. I met Tom Gilb in the queue for lunch at a conference, and he sat down and said, listen to my ideas. And I thought, wow, he makes a lot of sense. And then he was writing a book on inspection, and he asked me um, he asked me first to review his book on principles of software engineering, which I did.
Hmm.
And then he asked me to be co-author with him on this book on software inspection. So that was
Right.
my first published book.
Hmm.
Um, then the next book that I wrote was the one on software test automation with Mark Fuster, and
Right.
that was he had this wonderful automated system in the 80s that was
Right.
better than I'd seen in any other companies. I was doing consultancy by that time, and I thought I got to drag the ideas out of his head and get them written down. We
Yeah.
became business partners and worked together for many years, and I still am in contact with him a lot. Um, but then with the ISTQB, we were uh, back in those days, there were no qualifications for testers. And
Right.
in the 90s and that, people would say, oh, anybody can test, there's nothing to
Yeah.
it, there's
Yeah.
nothing to
Yeah.
learn, there's nothing to know. Get
Yeah.
people off the street, to come and do the testing.
Yeah.
And testers were not respected. And
That's
we
correct.
thought, well, if there's some kind of basic qualification, because other parts of software development and project management, they all had some kind of a qualification. If we
Mhm.
had some qualification for testers, just to show that there was something to learn and that there
Mhm.
was some way of recognizing the fact that some people had learned these things. It
Right.
doesn't make people great testers, but it takes away the bottom layer of ignorance. You have
Mhm.
a sort of a common vocabulary, so that if you're talking about something, even if you use different terms as to other people in other organizations, if you can
Mhm.
relate it to a definition of a term, then you know what you're talking about. And I was invited to write the book for that. Well, it was started with ISEB, which is part of the British Computer Society,
Mhm.
Information Systems Examination Board. And the first qualification for testing with a certificate was a foundation level from ISEB, and that was in 1998.
Right.
Mark and I actually ran the first course.
Mhm.
Um, but then after a while, there was international interest,
Mhm.
and ISTQB started, and then it all. I was on the working party that developed the first syllabus for the foundation um, when it first started, and
Right.
then I was invited to work with Isabel, Rex, and Eric to write the book. So we've done
Mhm.
4 editions now. The
Yeah.
last edition was finished, I think, about 2 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. The latest one. Yeah. I think 2018 is the one,
That's right, the
right?
2018
Yeah. Yeah.
syllabus, yeah, and
2018. Yeah.
published
Yeah.
in 2020, yeah.
Right. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that was sort of a long answer to what was a short question, sorry.
No, no, no. I think yes, it totally makes sense, and I want to pick a point there. You have mentioned that the software testing was not respected. I mean,
Mhm.
this is very commonly asked question, and I somehow don't believe that software testing is not respected. Like now, it has changed, but still, that question is still there.
Mm,
That it is not as respected, or people, I don't know, in organizations why it is looked as a low profile sort of.
mm,
Still I can feel that. um and what are your thoughts, why is that concept or conception, um why was that conception first thing at during your time, and why is it still there?
I think one reason why it still gets propagated is that people don't pay testers the same as they pay developers. And a lot of times people say, well, I get paid more than you, so obviously I'm more important than you.
Right.
And that's, I don't know, when to begin with, there wasn't a separate testing discipline at all. Anyone who wrote code tested their own. Of course,
Right.
that's got problems because you don't see all your own faults. So then the idea of independent testing came in with Glenford Meyer's book, which was published in 1979. But that got taken to an extreme, and then the testers were totally separated from development, and there was no communication. And that's not a good idea either.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but I think, yeah, it's I suppose it's partly because testing is never the leader. Testing is following. We are testing what's there. We are not the ones who are putting out what's there.
That's
The
correct.
new developments in coding and things like that, object oriented, new languages, new ways of doing
Mhm.
things, even
Right.
artificial intelligence. The testing is coming to say, well, hang on a minute, let's check the quality. I don't know why testing shouldn't be considered even more important than development,
Absolutely. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it
And
isn't. Yeah.
yeah, it's very totally agree what you said. Each and every point is what I feel like. First thing, very recent experience. A
Yeah.
person I was talking to, um, basically a recruiter, you'd say, like, I am offering you this much. This is usually testers don't get this much. That was the recent conversation I had like a week and a half, and I thought I'll ask this question to you. And the so this is basically the mindset of the recruiter or anyone who is working in
Mm,
the development field, that they feel that this is something which anybody can do. They
Mm.
don't understand that it requires a mindset, it requires a lot of thinking, and it requires understanding of the overall landscape to basically go ahead and see how things are working. That's
Yeah,
the first thing.
it's very sad to hear that, actually, that
Yeah, yeah,
still think that way about testing.
right, right.
Mm.
The, and just after that, I mean, it's not like they were paying a lot, but then just after that, I was getting another recruiter who was ready to pay maybe like another, like on top of that, 30% more, 35% more. So it's not like pay is not at all a barrier nowadays. That's what I mean. In testing, I have been into the conversations wherein the offers are a much higher range as compared to the developers. So
Ah,
that is something which is very positive I have seen.
mm,
The next thing is, like, what I feel is testers sometimes do not proactively go and explore things in the landscape. That's
mm,
the another challenge when I see that you yourself are responsible for the the basically the way you are treated within the team. It's more of you, how you set up your landscape, how
mm,
you um, portray your proactiveness and knowledge. I think that's another factor, because I have faced this for a lot of time. And then when I started basically learning a lot, exploring proactively, having a conversation, it had made a difference. So, like current projects, it's sort of people look as a person who is leading the whole capability, and it's not like somebody's looking up and down. So it is changing, but it is still there. I mean, it
mm.
depends whom
Yeah,
you're
I think
talking to.
one thing that testers could and should do is sell themselves more within their organizations.
Yeah.
If a tester can make more visible what it is that they bring to the organization. I've heard a couple of talks recently from people who have managed to do this. There was one lady who was talking, I'm sorry, I don't remember who it was, talking about how she worked with a developer, and between the two of them, they realized that by this sort of good relationship that they had, that she was able to make the developer do much better work by
Hmm.
cooperating. And
Absolutely.
together, they publicized that. They said, look, together we are much more effective. We can do better work. We produce much better quality code.
Right,
And just
right.
promoting the value of testing. Sometimes you can do that in a negative way when something goes wrong and that wasn't
Hmm.
the testing was cut. But I think it's better really to do it in a positive way and say, look, here's
Yeah.
the value that testing brings to the organization.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think like the more collaborative approach is there. And I think with agile and practices, basically the mindset being followed within the team, I think it's getting better, but it will take some time until it
Yeah, that's
actually,
right.
will look up and down. Ideally, as a human being, we shouldn't be looking someone up and down, but that's how it is. I mean, with just couple of $100,000 being paid much doesn't make you a different person, or being very rich person doesn't make you a lot different as a human being. But yeah, that's how it
Mhm.
is. That's Okay, great. So let's move on to the next question. Who has impacted you most in your career?
Uh, hmm. I think, well, the one who's been the most help, the most support is my husband. He's quite wonderful. He's always encouraged my career. He took an early retirement package to come into when we set up Growth Consultants to come into the business, and he's always encouraged me to do what I enjoy doing. And that was everything from looking after the children when they were young to doing the cooking, which he still does.
Yeah.
But also he's in computing as well and has written a couple of books himself. And I can always bounce ideas off them. And I like to say that sometimes my best ideas are actually his. So he comes up with my best ideas. I was also influenced when I was first starting out. My very first conference presentation, I was encouraged to give that by a lady called Barbara Kitchenham, who worked at the National Computing Center where I was at the time. I was working with them. And my first paper wasn't actually on testing, it was on incremental development, non monolithic life cycle models in the time when the waterfall was king.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and I'd met Tom Gilb, and he talked about evolutionary delivery. If he'd called it rapid delivery or agile,
Hmm.
it might have got more traction. But he is, in fact, known as the grandfather of agile, and his
Right.
ideas also influenced me a lot. And I always liked the fact that he always gave away everything for free. You can go on his website and get so much stuff; it's just overwhelming sometimes. And
Right.
he's
Yeah.
one of the great original thinkers, I think. And then I suppose
Yeah.
the third person is Mark Fuster, who I've written two books with, and we were business partners and still good friends.
Hmm.
So, and there have been a lot of people who I've looked up to, a lot of people who have helped me. Um, so, yeah, lots of people.
Right. Yeah. 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 Great. Yeah. I mean, it's absolutely fantastic to know about the people, and iterative or incremental model is something which I think is the basis of all of the agile
It
um,
is, yes, yeah.
commercialization that has been done.
Yeah, in fact,
Um,
all the people who signed the Agile Manifesto have
yeah.
all
Yeah. Yeah.
referenced Bob's work as being
ab-
influential for them. And it makes so much
Absolutely.
sense. I mean, at the time, people would say you have to write all your requirements and get them
Yeah.
perfect, frozen
Yeah.
requirements. And then
Yeah.
you have to do all your design. And then you can start
Right.
writing code. And then you
Yeah.
test.
Yeah. Yeah.
Crazy. No wonder it
Yeah.
didn't work.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas Tom's approach is do the minimum you can that's useful to your client, to your customer, to your stakeholder.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And
And that's where
incremental approach was something which is there in your book, and that's where I learn, and I think that's what the basis of everything is, what we.
Well, it's
Yeah.
feedback, isn't it?
Yeah.
Not only
Yeah.
are you getting feedback on what you've built, you're getting feedback
Yeah.
on what you've released and what your
Yeah.
customers actually want, and it
Right.
just makes so much sense.
Yeah. Yeah. True. Great. Yeah. But yeah, nowadays there is so much great commercialization of agile and things like that. I mean, you are aware, I am aware, but no comments on any of those. But yes,
Mhm.
nothing is for free. You go for two days class, or you will get a certificate and you'll be an expert. So I've done
Mm,
so many of them. So yeah, I know. I mean, I've done like 12 all together. So I've explored all of the areas, and at the end, it's all sort of, it's
mm.
good. But yeah, it's
Yeah, I
okay.
mean, that's the thing. A short course can help you understand something, can help you learn
Yeah,
some things,
yeah,
but it doesn't make you an expert. It's only
right.
doing things that makes that
That's
increases you actually being
yeah,
able to do something. Mm.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah. Okay. Next question. So I think it's sort of similar, but yeah, I would like to know, in last 30 to 40 years, I think 50 years you have been in software testing, right? Almost.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Well,
like
I started
50.
my career 52 years ago, so yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. So what changes have you seen? It's like in those 52 years.
A lot. Yeah, I mean the technology is unimaginable from what it was. That the first job I had in New Jersey, the mainframe we had I think had something like 500 megabytes of
Mhm.
storage, and I mean what's on your phone now? It's
Yeah.
gigabytes. It's and it costs like in today's terms it costs $13 million. And what do you pay for your phone? Nothing. So the way the technology has changed is just unimaginable. But testing has changed as well. And testing back then was seen as more like an unnecessary evil. Well, a necessary evil maybe that shouldn't really be necessary. And I mean, back in the 70s, when I sort of started uh, as an independent, there were a few training courses, but everybody wrote their own and just decided what they were going to talk about. There was no agreement about what was the right thing to talk about in testing. No qualifications, of course, and anyone can test. There's no skill involved. There were some conferences. The Special Interest Group in Software Testing, run by the British Computer Society, started up in 1989, and we had meetings 4 times a year. There were American testing conferences, and I went to my very first proper testing conference, multi-day, full week event in 1991, and that was mind-blowing. And then we started Eurostar 2 years later. That was another really interesting thing to have done. And there were, I mean, the commercial tools started, I think, in the late 80s, the 90s, but they were very expensive, and there were a lot of technical problems with them. A lot of them for GUI testing depended on, you know, things on the GUI. If you moved anything, all the tests fell apart. I mean, they weren't really terribly sophisticated. And waterfall was the perceived wisdom of the day. And testing was squeezed in at the actually test was usually squeezed out at the end rather than squeezed in at the end. And I mean, in the 52 years, I mean, now testing is recognized as a skill, as something that there is something to learn about it. There is, there's more to it than just sitting down and hitting the keyboard. And there is a lot of training available now. I mean, with the ISTQB, at least you have a common basis of understanding. I mean, I know ISTQB isn't the answer to everything, and it doesn't solve all problems, but I think that having that basic level of understanding of testing has really helped a lot in the worldwide community. I think what went wrong with ISTQB was people were taking it and trying to pretend to say that it was more than it was. To say, oh, if you take this 3-day course, then you will be an expert tester and you will get a huge salary in your first job. And they were selling things on that basis, which was wrong. And there was a backlash, rightly, to that. But the backlash went too far, and the backlash ended up saying, I mean, there was one blog post I remember saying certification is evil. No, it wasn't.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
was
I've seen that well. I've
yeah.
seen that as well. Yes, and I don't agree.
Yeah.
um,
I mean, that was the saddest thing I've seen, I think, in my life in testing, is the sort of antagonism that came about from that sort of split. And I think nowadays people aren't that bothered about it, which I think is good.
yeah, yeah. I think yeah. I mean, when I saw, like, you can't put everyone, like, everyone is different, right? I mean, I learn more in a structured approach. This is the basis. This is the baseline that helped me to carve my path in future. So this structure, whatever ISTQB provided me, this is my personal experience. I don't want to go into any sort of argument and things like that, but this has provided me a structured perspective, like how things are done, and then build on top of it. So, and many people are real expert. I mean, they are born expert who claim like that, but yeah, I mean, not everyone can be same. Many people would learn more in a structured approach. So tagging something that this is not good, this is good, it's something which I don't agree as well on that. But yeah, I mean, that's a great great sort of journey that you had, and in 50
Point.
years.
People
Yeah,
learn different ways.
yeah,
Someone will like something to be very structured and have
yeah,
point and then this point and this point and all be very logical. Other people
right.
get bored with that, and they would
Absolutely.
prefer, here you are thrown in the deep end, do this. What
Yes.
happened? Okay, now let's
Yeah.
look back at it. And I mean,
Right.
both ways of learning are good, but
Yeah.
for some people, one way of learning is going to be more beneficial to them than others. And I think
Absolutely.
good training has approaches that help. However you learn, it will help you learn in the best way that's good for you. That's a
Absolutely. Yeah.
I know, but
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Great. Okay. So moving on. The next question is, what is the most important skill that you see is important for software testing professionals?
I think the most important thing that a tester has, and this I think has been true all through my life in testing, is it's, as you said before, the tester's mindset. The tester is the one who thinks, well, what could go wrong? Or what if it isn't? And have you thought of this? And thinking outside the box and thinking of, well, yes, I know it says this here, but what if that's not true? Or
Yeah.
what about this? And does this depend on that? The inquiring mind, the curiosity, the challenging mind of the tester, that is what makes a good tester, I think. However
Absolutely.
that comes across, whether you're writing up tests formally or whether you're just going and doing some informal exploratory testing before something goes out in the last 10 minutes.
Right.
However it is, it's that inquiring mind and be able to. I like to say that testers have to be twice as creative as developers, because not only do you have to think of what they thought of, you have to think of what they didn't think of, and
Absolutely.
testing that as well. So I think that's the most important quality that a tester has. But of course, there are lots of other qualities that make good testers as well. You need to have good communication skills, because it's no good to be brilliant at finding bugs if you can't actually explain them so that they can be fixed. So
Right.
and also communicating the value of testing, as I said before, that's an important skill to be able to talk with stakeholders and managers, um, and being, keeping careful records, being meticulous. There's lots of different qualities that make good testers. And
Right. Yeah. And I totally agree. Like the first, like testing mindset is is the most important thing that I feel that will make you a great tester.
Mhm.
Apart from that, yes, communication skill. Yes, you should be able to explain, you should be able to articulate. So, but the mindset is something like without that you can't actually become, that's my feeling. Like you need to inquire, you just don't need to look at the document and document the test cases. Like you need to think what others haven't thought. You need to think what, for whom you are building that application or system, who will
Exactly.
be using it. So
Yeah.
that thought process, and I spend a lot of time, like before I jump into actual writing the scenarios or actually thinking or documenting something, I just sit back, relax, and think about that system, ask a lot of questions, try to understand. And then people think within the team, why is sort of a person who is asking so many questions? And then eventually, when it all becomes a overall sort of the approach that I write, that this is how we are going to test, and this is how you should be aligning the overall testing and process, so that you find the issues where others won't be able to find, because you just not don't need to think about the system that you are building, but if there are other endpoints and communication that needs to happen, you need to think about that as well.
Exactly.
So yes, so that's great. Yeah.
Yeah, I
All
really
right.
like that way of starting to think
Yeah,
about testing, just sitting back and thinking about the big picture. Who is the
absolutely.
system for? What do they need?
Yeah,
That's where testing starts.
yeah.
Yeah.
And many people just uh, many like people in my team, they just jump into a solution, and then I ask them, even if you're automating, right, there is a lot of divide between automation tester and manual tester. And I say, I mean, automation is yes, you are testing with the automation, with the script, but actually the thought process is yours. It's not the tool that is doing that thought process. It's your
Exactly.
thought process. You have documented, you have thought about that process, and if that process can be automated, you're using that script. So you need to have that mindset for sure to become a successful automation tester, or become a successful tester. I mean, I don't believe in that manual tester and automation tester sort of
You,
keywords.
yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, when you think about what is testing, I mean, as you say, you start by saying, well, what have we got here? What is the system? Who is it for? What are they going to use it for? And then you need to say, well, what parts is it made up of? And how thoroughly do we need to test each part? And how should we test it? I mean, what techniques are we going to use? What about security, performance, non-technical aspects? Are we going to test for those? What data do we need and how do we set that up? What environments do we need and how do we set that up? Have
Mhm.
we had any automation yet? I don't think so. Then what values should we have to run the
Yeah,
tests? Well,
yeah.
tools can maybe help a bit with that. What's the correct result? If you put that value in, what's right and what's wrong?
Hmm. Hmm.
A tool won't tell you that. Actually, a tool
Yeah,
only tells you whether something matches something. It doesn't tell you if it's correct.
absolutely. Yeah,
A
yeah.
human being has to do that. Then you have to enter the inputs and run the software. Yes, tools help with that, and they help quite a bit because that can be
Yeah,
tedious, especially if
yeah.
you're doing it over and over. And tools can compare results with other results.
Hmm.
But then if there's any anomalies, they have to be communicated to people who can fix them. And then you have to think, well, how thoroughly did we actually test?
Mhm.
And was that enough? And if that wasn't enough, then we have to repeat some of the steps. And what risks are left and how important are they? And
Right.
all of those are testing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
In a way, it's a shame that the phrase automated testing and test
Yeah.
automation
Yeah.
came about. I wish, thinking about back on it now, I wish it had stuck with computer aided software testing. I mean, you don't talk about automated project management, do you?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Automation.
Right. And you just talk about like testing can be automated and you can eradicate people, right? So
Yes,
it's
and that's again, it's very unfortunate that managers don't understand what testing
yeah.
is, and
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
uh,
And
yeah, and so they say, oh, we've got a testing tool. That again,
right.
it's not a tool that does testing. It's a tool
Yeah.
that assists testing. Um,
Right. Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Anyway,
True. True. So on that same note, like how important do you think test automation is in software testing?
oh, it is vitally important because there are a lot of things that the tools can do that are mind-numbingly boring for people. And I mean, that's the thing. Computers are really good at doing things that are repetitive and that are straightforward and can be prescribed and have to be done lots of different times. Computers eat that for breakfast. People, on the other hand, if it's the same thing over and over again, oh, I'm so bored. I've done this before.
Yeah.
And then we start making mistakes, whereas the computer will do it the same way every time.
Right.
And what we need to do is use people to do what people do best and use tools to do what tools do best and getting the two merged together. There was an excellent talk on Saturday. I was privileged to be part of a conference called Axiom Summit.
Hmm.
Um, and Merit from Finland, whose last name you probably know and I won't try to pronounce, gave a really interesting talk on exploratory testing, contemporary exploratory testing, where it's mixed in with the automation. He says you can't do good exploratory testing without automation, and you can't do automation without exploratory testing. And I mean, that's it. You want to have the blend where you get the best of both, because
Absolutely.
the tools do not think. No tool will ever think, I've got a great idea to test this.
Yeah.
No
Yeah.
tool will ever think,
Yeah.
I know it says that in the results, but I think it's wrong.
Right.
Tools just do what they're told, and that's all. But they are very useful.
Right. Absolutely. I mean,
But we mustn't think that they do everything. That's the key thing. There's so much to testing, and the tools help with part of it.
right. Yeah. And as you mentioned in your previous statement, that testing is so much. Testing is not just that automation bit.
Exactly.
And nowadays I see like people running behind, so they don't focus much on the testing mindset, learning the skills and principles of testing and the thought process, and directly they jump into Selenium with Java.
Yeah.
So so Selenium is Java is good, but then it's just a UI sort of automation open source tool, and it will help you to automate redundant tasks and redundant regression, some of the test cases. But yes, as you said, like it won't allow you to think. It doesn't matter whether it's Selenium with Java or any automation tool that you pick. It has to be a blend of your mindset, skills, how you think, how you design everything, and then use the right tools to automate redundant tasks and regression test and whatever test that you can think of. So absolutely, yeah, totally agree on that.
Yeah, I mean, the tools are just that. They are tools. They
Yeah,
are things
yeah.
that help you do things that you wouldn't be able to do otherwise. I mean, one of the things that we did when we had the first lockdown and we couldn't go out, we didn't go out shopping, we had things delivered, but we bought a bread machine. And this bread machine, so we can put the stuff in overnight, and in the morning we have this lovely fresh loaf of bread. It's about that big.
Right. Yeah.
It's really nice. But occasionally we forget to put the yeast in. And
Oh,
guess
yeah.
what? It's not a lovely loaf of bread. It's like a brick. It's automated. It was
Yeah.
an automated process. How could
Right.
it possibly go wrong? It's
Yeah.
because what you put in it. And with the automated tests as well, the automation is just a way of producing it, of making it run. But it's what tests have you automated? When I wrote the CAST report, one of the things I said in there that I've been quoting for 50 years, 30
Mhm.
years, is if your testing is in chaos, if your testing is really bad, if you automate that, automating chaos just gives you faster chaos. And
Yeah,
that's not a good thing to do. You're much better off improving how you are testing and getting better value from the testing than speeding it up.
absolutely. So faster chaos. On the same note, I have a I have a person like this was my own experience. Um, Nothing sort of personal, but yeah, I've many managers in the past. Um, why can't we have this one button, one click automation, and
Oh, yeah.
then all the team is not required to do the regression test, or like, or we can just automate everything, 100%
Oh, yeah.
automation.
I hate this T-shirt that people wear saying "automate all the things." I like what I think it was Alan Page said: "Automate all the things that should be automated."
Yeah, yeah,
And I mean, this one button. I think the tool vendors have often overhyped what the tools will do, and I think this is
yeah,
not a good thing.
yeah,
I also, the phrase manual testing. I
yeah,
have a theory, and one person agrees with me, but I can't prove it, that this was a phrase invented by a tool vendor back in the 90s who wanted to make testing, human testing, sound really bad. And if you think of when you think of manual, you often think of manual labor, like
yeah,
bricklayers and people, which is not very well regarded by white collar workers, even though it's extremely skilled. And
yeah,
by calling it manual testing, I think that mindset has sort of degraded the fact that testing by hand and testing by humans and creative testing and imaginative testing and exploratory testing is not mechanical. Again, the tools are focusing only on the things which can be automated well, which is typing things in and comparing results. And the tools are great at doing that.
yeah,
But
yeah,
that's
yeah,
not the whole story. You don't push one button. Who gets everything behind the button to work if there's one button? There was a
yeah, yeah,
wonderful story I heard from one of the tool vendors that I knew years ago, and they had sold their testing tool to this particular company, and the company was that they'd never had any questions. The first 3 weeks, usually people had a lot of questions about the
mhm,
tool, and so eventually they got in touch with them, and they called them and said, "How are you getting on with the tool?" "Well, I'm still waiting. It hasn't done anything yet." They just expected the tool to come in and do all the testing.
right, yeah, yeah,
Portion press of a button, which I
yeah,
think some of the tool vendors have encouraged. There are a
mhm,
lot of good tool vendors out there. There are a lot of responsible salespeople,
mhm,
but
mhm.
there are also people who overhype things. And
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, totally agree. I mean, this 100% philosophy and not understanding that, yes, you can automate 100% of automatable test cases. Yeah, that's absolutely possible.
yeah,
But then
uh,
you say 100% testing, I want to automate. That's absolutely like you don't know what testing is, and then you are
exactly,
basically making
exactly.
that statement that on a single click I'll run everything, report will go, and nobody will be required, just one person will be monitoring. And so these
Yeah.
sort of statements I have heard in it has been. So yeah, I
I
mean
think
there have been many.
you get excited and angry about these as I do.
Yeah, yeah. And this manual testing thing, like, man, I mean, because it's so popular, even I sometimes and many times, like in my videos, I have to put just to, so that
Mhm.
people find those videos. But then manual and automation, it's a testing, right? You automate or you perform it
Yeah.
manually. So they have segregated it, so there is a so big divide that
Mm.
that manual thing, like, and this was more, I think, when you are filling up the form. Yes, so automation tool will be really helpful in that. Or if you're testing the API, then you have in the API, you have so many fields, you have to populate the data, so you can automate that. So that part where you manually put those details, that's acceptable. Yes, you don't need to do that sort of manual effort. But then dividing testing as manual testing and sort of automation testing, because automation tool is not going to test,
Exactly.
it can't think. So
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's all little work stuff.
I'm
Yeah.
not sure if I'm making sense, but yeah, I mean,
Well, I
this is
absolutely agree with you, totally.
yeah.
Yeah. We are so on the
So
same.
right. Yeah. So a lot of questions on automation, and the next one on the automation as well. So I have been asked this so many times with my viewers. So will testing field itself disappear one day? And I said, no, not at all. It's not going to happen. So my question is, can automation and artificial intelligence, because they are afraid of this artificial intelligence
Mm,
coming in picture now, can this replace testing professionals altogether?
absolutely not. No, there will, well, under one circumstance, there are no humans left on Earth. Then everything's automated.
Yeah.
But or maybe another alternative is that all software development is totally 100% perfect. No one ever again ever makes a mistake when writing any code or any interface or putting anything together.
Yeah. Yeah.
But even then, you still better check it. So
Yeah.
no, it's
Yeah.
just
Absolutely.
a ridiculous idea. If you have human people and human users, you better have some human testers.
Right.
Um,
Yeah. 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 And what I give example in this case is that there is a movie Robot. I think there is a version of I think the Hollywood movie as well, wherein robots became so intelligent with the artificial intelligence they took over the whole universe. So I give that example, and there is a Bollywood movie in India as well, I think. So robots became so powerful that they took over. They have that intelligence.
yeah,
But then human has made them. They still have some sort of control. They can manage it. So I mean, the same answer I gave. It's not possible, right? I mean, until everything is just, you know, if AI comes in picture, you will be testing AI. That's the
mm.
only thing that
Well,
can
yes,
change.
there was a very interesting talk on AI at the conference on Saturday as well, and she made the point that there are three levels of it, and we're only in the narrow AI at the moment.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
AI can do things which are very carefully prescribed, and for which you had very good sets to train it on.
Hmm.
But that's really
Yeah.
narrow. That is
Yeah. Yeah.
so things like Google searches, they work
Yeah.
really well. But
Yeah.
I'm fascinated by the things that go wrong with self-driving cars.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I might quite like a self-driving car. I don't like driving at night. So if I had a self-driving car that drove at night, but I think that's a long way off, considering that even in the daytime they can kill people.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um,
Absolutely. Yeah.
it's you know, I think I don't know where this phrase came from, but artificial intelligence is no match for natural stupidity. Uh, and you've got so many variables in there. And artificial, again, it's just computers. You know, it's not
Absolutely. Yeah.
intelligence. It's very fast. I mean, who was it? Was it Arthur C. Clarke who said any form of technology sufficiently advanced is indistinguishable from magic?
Mhm.
And the AI is now to the stage where it almost looks like magic to us. But I mean, 50 years ago, what we have on our phones now would have
Yeah.
looked like magic. So,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it is only technology, and it will have flaws, and it will go wrong. And it
Absolutely.
doesn't need to be, you know, as testers, we have a responsibility to keep an eye on that and do what we can to test that as well.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. I mean,
Not to
this.
get involved in it personally.
Yeah. Yeah. This statement, and especially these are some of the fresh graduates who are from the university, and they don't have clue whether it's the right sort of field to start with. And I say, absolutely, like, if you have interest to test, why not go for it, right?
Mm.
And having that sort of fear that this field will go away, I don't know where they get these statements, because when I started that time as well, there was a statement like testing will no more be there, there will be automation tools. And then when I started using automation tools, I mean, I still remember Windrunner, and then the,
Yeah,
right, so I used those tools, and they were so basic that UI tests were like one or two. It was a challenge to run those tests
very flaky.
in a stable way.
Mm.
Yeah, very flaky, very flaky. So, absolutely, yeah. So, guys, yeah, I mean, testing is always going to be there. Don't worry about that. I mean, until our lives. So, and AI, you will be testing AI if AI takes over.
Uh, yeah, AI is not perfection.
Yeah, yeah,
It is just another tool, and it will do
absolutely.
some things very well,
Yeah,
but it will not do everything. And
yeah.
when it
Like you can
tries to do
train.
things it doesn't do well.
Yeah, yeah. And you can,
Mm.
it, I think you just train it based on certain criterias that you have. But then there are so many aspects that it hasn't even been trained at, right? So it's
Well,
more of,
exactly, yeah. And I mean, the biases in the training sets,
yeah, yeah,
the horrifying stories of how those have been basically built-in racism.
right, yeah,
Absolutely wrong.
yeah, yeah,
Mm.
yeah, yeah. Great. All right. So, next question is, so this is my sort of last question, Dorothy, and then we'll take some questions from the audiences as well. So what is your advice to people who want to start career in software testing? And this is for all my viewers who have asked this question hundreds of times to me. So I want to listen from you, and this is for these viewers.
Well, certainly from my point of view, I've found a career in testing to be absolutely amazing and great fun and very exciting and very stimulating. If you want to get started in testing, start doing some testing. I mean, I think there are ways that you can get involved in like crowd testing and things like that. That's a good way to sort of get into it and try it and see if you like it. Um, if you want to get a job in testing, if you've done something already, like on a voluntary basis, that might help you get a job. And it would also tell you whether you actually like doing it or not, because not everybody likes it. But if you have an inquiring mind, if you like solving puzzles, if you like finding out how things work, or try to, if when you read something you always see the typos,
Mhm.
then yeah, maybe testing would be a good thing for you to do.
Right. Yeah, great.
So
So
the
guys,
world is quite different now than it was when I was sort of in the midst of it. I'm supposed to be retired, but I haven't quite got the hang of that yet.
yeah, great. I think great piece of advice, Dorothy, for the viewers. I think many of my viewers are sort of from the early career stages,
Right.
and some percentage wise, I think some of them are from maybe 8 to 10 years experience who want to transition into the automation or the test lead and management sort of
Mm.
roles. But many of them are sort of initial, and I try to help the maximum I can by taking some mock interviews and things like that. And this is sort of a question which is something um, great to hear from you, because you have seen this question from past 50 years, 52 years of your whole career. So that's great. All right. So I think that's all for the questions that I have. Guys, you can go ahead with the questions if you have um, for Dorothy. So there is one question. Um, let's see. So can you please ask her how to become one of the software test engineer? All right, this is from Girja Mishra.
Um, yeah, I'm not quite sure what you mean by a software test engineer, because I haven't been in the workplace for many years. I'm not
Yeah,
really sure what these
yeah.
sort of terms. What do you
So
think is meant?
it's software tester. I think software test engineer
That's
usually they
right.
say in India, but it's software tester or test
Okay.
analyst. That's what
Mm.
the yeah
Okay. Yeah.
yeah
Uh, well, other than what I've said just now about how to get into testing, I mean, having a qualification might help, and having the ISTQB helps with some employers like to have you have some kind of qualification, so that can help. Um, and yeah, try it and see if you like it. Really,
yeah yeah right. Great. Then another is from Vinod. It's a great pleasure to see you. Love from India. So yeah, a lot of people there who, and then another question from Vinod is any important certifications to stand out in interviews?
I don't know much about interviews, to be honest. My last proper job, the last time I was employed, finished in 1979. So uh, mm, I don't know what I can't really answer that question actually. I'm
All
sorry.
right. Yeah. Yeah. I
You
think it's
probably answer that, Manish, more than I can.
no. I think certifications. What I think, Dorothy, to be because this is my own personal experience in terms of certification. ISTQB has helped me a lot. This was the certification which I did because it sets sort of a baseline, and recruiters look for that certification, and employers actually look for that baseline certification that you should be ISTQB Foundation certified, and now they are looking for ISTQB Agile extension as well, because
Right.
it gives you a sort of basic understanding
That's
that
right. Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
And
yeah,
you're exactly right. I mean, that's what it is. It gives you a basic understanding of what testing is. It introduces you to the most common, probably the most useful testing
hmm,
techniques, tells you a bit about management, life cycles, a bit about tools.
right,
And it's a good way. It doesn't make you a great tester, but it does mean that you have learned something about testing. So it
absolutely.
can be a good start. I'm delighted to hear that it has helped you.
Yeah, I
So
mean,
having worked on
this
getting it all started. And it's
right.
amazing. I mean, the
Yeah,
number of qualifications now offered by ISTQB, there's dozens of them.
yeah,
So
yeah.
it's quite amazing, really.
Yeah, and I think I hold like four or five
Right.
certification from ISTQB. So I have found them really helpful, and because I started, and I don't see that it hasn't helped me. I mean, I've been successful overall in the testing career, and I keep learning. I still refer these books. I When I test the applications, I'm testing them well. And this is not to boast, but yes, I mean, because I have found it helpful. I think that's what I tell people, that because recruiters also look for ISTQB
Yeah.
qualification.
Well, it does
So it
give employers a sort of a standard to say,
right,
have you bothered enough about testing to take the exam?
right, right,
Have you invested in yourself that much?
yeah,
But I mean,
and
what you have done is what everyone should be doing, is taking that and running with it and building on it and building
yeah,
your skills and taking it further. And that's
right,
great.
yeah, like
Mm,
because it as you rightly said, it won't make you an expert, but it gives you a proper sort of landscape, the terms and how things work, and then you
mm,
build on top of it, right? When you
mm,
go into project, you actually understand what people are saying, um, and then you actually see how things work in action in the real project.
mm,
So yeah.
mm.
All right, the next question is from Anurag. Can you explain the future of automation testing?
That's a good question. Yes. Well, certainly, test automation in testing is going to be around forever, because
Yeah,
the sorts of things that the tools can do for you are they can do the things that are difficult and error prone for people to do, and they give you tremendous support. So they free you up to do more creative testing, to do better testing, to put better things into the machine so that the tools can run better tests, because you're thinking more about what the tests should be, while the automation in the background is doing the running and the checking against the results. So certainly automation will be around to stay. I know that the tools are changing dramatically. I don't like the phrase no code, because of course there's code. It's a computer program. Um,
yeah,
what they should say is um, a really good interface to the automation code. And
yeah,
in fact,
yeah,
the the first book that we wrote with the software test automation,
mhm,
we you know the way that Mark had built his automation, there was a good interface, and using a keyword driven approach is a way to get an interface into the automation. It's the interface between the people using the tool and the tool itself. I mean, it's a compiler back in the days was the
yeah,
interface between, and even when I started out, people were still writing code in assembly language.
yeah,
So, and that the compilers were a big step forward. And the more advanced tools have very good interfaces, and that's a good thing. But I don't like them
yeah.
being called no code.
No code and low code. Yes, I
Yeah, no
currently
code.
I'm working on no code tool. So yes, Tosca is one of that. I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
but at the back, I mean, if you get stuck somewhere, you have to basically go and
Well, exactly.
write the
Yeah.
code.
It's fine if it all works, but what if it goes wrong? And we're
Yeah,
testers. Things go
Yeah,
wrong. We know
yeah,
that.
yeah. Great. All right. Another question.
Can I put in a plug for the wiki for test automation patterns? And
Mhm.
we have the book Journey Through Test Automation Patterns is
Right.
a book which sort of, and it's available as an ebook as well,
Mhm.
which helps to do that. But the patterns themselves, it's testautomationpatterns.org.
Mhm.
And it's a free resource that Saretta Gamba and I have put together, which just sort of gives you good advice about how to do automation well. And
Right.
definitely
Yeah.
automation is around to stay. So thank you for that question.
Yeah. Thank you. Another question from Kirija is your views on AI and ML testing.
Necessary, definitely. Difficult, I think. It's going to be if you have a machine learning system where it's teaching itself things. I mean, how do you know that it's got the right answer if it's sort of I think there are huge challenges to testing these systems, but I think it's going to be necessary to try and test them as much as we can.
Right. Yeah.
So, and I don't know a
Yeah.
great deal about it.
Yeah. 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 I mean, I've worked. I've just used an interface which was doing AI, but then and this is basically OCR recognition, and
Ah,
that's very basic, as you mentioned. Like that's very basic. If
mm.
if it is a typed document, it will send you some sort of scanned
Oh
results
yeah,
very well. But if it is handwritten and there is something here and there, it fails. So, so we are
yeah.
at that stage of
Well, the
artificial
ones that when
intelligence.
you get the captions, if you get, we sometimes put captions on for
Yeah,
the
yeah,
television. If we can't understand what people are saying, they're talking too fast because we're old. And sometimes the captions get it hilariously wrong.
yeah,
I was watching something the other day, and the captions were just so funny because they were so wrong.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and that's AI, but it's not working very well.
Right. Yeah. All right. Okay. There is another question. For fresher who have no practical experience, how would you relate to practical thought process in real field scenarios? Any suggestion to expedite the learning process?
Well, we all experience software in many different ways in our lives. If you're using an app or something like that, maybe just play around with it, try and break it, see if you can make it go wrong. And if you do, then get in contact with whoever supplied it and tell them about it. That might be, I mean, I often find mistakes like on websites or things like that. And I try to contact the people and tell them what's wrong. Sometimes I get responses and sometimes I don't. But I think a lot of times we've got so used to things being so buggy out there that we don't even, think, oh, it's not worth even reporting anything. But I think we should object to buggy software wherever we find it. And
Yeah,
that could be a way of trying. I mean, if you're trying to find bugs, but that's a big part of testing is to try and make things go wrong. Um, and that might be
yeah,
a way of sort of beginning to have some practical experience to in your own life to try and um, try to find things to go wrong and report that to the people who've written that code. I don't know really.
true. Yeah, yeah, I totally agree. And this is the same thing that I mentioned that there are so many apps and websites available. Just go ahead. When even the institutes, many of them, they say live projects, they actually just pick a particular website and they will help you to write the test case and then execute just on that dummy
Yeah,
sort
yeah,
of
getting
website
one of
or
these
app.
crowd testing sites. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
mm,
So
that
yes, I
could be
mean,
neat. Yeah.
just pick a particular website and try to break it, try to see how things navigate, and then because when you learn how to write test case, just pick a feature and try to write the test case, document the test cases, then execute on that particular website. So that's how you can get the real field scenario experience basically on your own.
Hope that
So
helps.
yeah. All right. Okay. The next question is from Vinod again. How many years manual testing experience is necessary before entering automation? I've seen many recruiters that don't even care about manual testing experience.
Oh, I'm glad you asked that. That is, you don't need to be an automator. Testing by hand I don't really like the word manual testing. I think
Yeah,
human testing or in-person testing, creative testing, that is a skill in its own right. And if you
yeah,
enjoy doing testing, I think the world is wrong at the moment
yeah,
because there's so
yeah,
much pressure, as you have clearly shown, that, oh, I'm only a manual tester, I better get into automation. That
yeah,
is
yeah,
wrong. Automation
yeah,
skills are different to testing skills. Testing is where we're trying to break the system, where we're using our creativity. We want to think about what could go wrong. It's this mindset. Automation is programming. Well, you might have a tool which doesn't, with the so-called no code,
yeah,
which
yeah,
lets you write tests very quickly, which can be run by the tool. But you're then using the computer and not your brain to run the
yeah,
tests. But your
right.
brain is what makes you a good tester. And I'm just the fact that when you see, I mean, I hear about this from people, the ads, the recruitment for testers, as you say, they don't care about your manual testing experience.
Mhm.
It's because they don't even care about manual testing. And
Yeah,
but the employers and the managers who don't understand testing think all testing should be automated. So therefore,
yeah,
all testers should be automators.
yeah,
And I just really object to that. But by the way, I have no objection to anyone who is a tester who wants to be an automator. That's fine. In fact, my son-in-law is one of them. But
mhm,
what I object to is people who like doing manual testing, who want to do manual testing, who have many years' experience in manual testing, being told you're no good because you're not doing automation. That is wrong. That is just dead wrong. Those people are valuable. Our industry is going to wake up one day and realize that we've thrown the baby out with the bathwater by
mhm,
devaluing testing skills by saying the only good tester is one who can write code for an automation tool. And it just is not right. It's a bit like saying if you're going to hire a chef for a restaurant, you're opening a new restaurant, and you get various chefs, and you want them to tell you how good they are at being a chef. But all you're asking about is what sort of knives can you use, and have you used this food processor? Doesn't matter. What you want is how the food taste.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, great example there. Like you're just asking what sort of knife you have used, right? I mean, so
exactly.
yeah, and that's where these and recruiters have no idea. I mean, this is
No,
basically what comes from the employers basically and the managers who write that job description. And job
who don't
descriptions are
understand
funny.
testing. The
I
managers don't understand testing. The recruiters don't
Yeah,
understand testing.
yeah,
We
and
need
many
to find a way as an industry to get
right.
managers educated about what testing is.
Right, yeah. And about the job descriptions, like there are some job descriptions which I see nowadays, and I feel like, oh, I don't know half of the things they have mentioned. Like I haven't even touched half of the technologies and skills that they are looking for. After 17 years of experience in the industry, if I haven't got to learn all of that they are asking for, but they ask for everything. And
Exactly.
and that's so funny. Like how can you expect that a person will know every possible tool out there and and all the technologies that are there, right? So it's and nobody asks for the mindset,
Yeah.
because in testing it's basically more of what I feel is you should be looking for the basic skills, how the person will
Mm.
how he thinks, how they are going to handle. It doesn't matter whether you are testing Salesforce, whether you're testing SAP, whether sorry, SAP, whether you are testing Hybris. It doesn't matter
Or
for
apps
the
or
yeah,
self-driving cars or AI.
yeah,
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 it's what are the risks? Can you
yeah,
assess risks?
right,
Can
yeah,
you communicate when things go wrong? Can you,
yeah, yeah,
those are the skills. Can you think of the things that other people haven't thought of?
mhm,
Hmm.
yeah, yeah, great.
The pendulum has swung too far, I think, and
Yeah, yeah,
I hope it
all
swings
right.
back soon. But that's something that really gets my goat, as you probably gathered.
Yeah, all right, great. We'll take a couple of more questions and then maybe we'll
Yes.
finish the session. Yeah, so that's a great pleasure to have insights from the legend. So thank you very much, Dorothy. Um, the next question from Vinod. I have seen many people in software industry. Initially, they start career in testing and they will transform different careers, cloud engineers, development. Yeah, absolutely possible.
Hmm. Yeah, it's a sad thing, really, that people in testing think that in order to advance their careers, they need to get into development. It should be also the other way around. People in
Yeah,
development, and it does happen occasionally that
yeah,
people in
yeah,
development think, I want to be a tester. But of course, it doesn't help if that means they have to take a pay cut. So it's partly organizational structure and things like that. But I mean, there's no problem with, I think people who have spent time as testers, when they become developers, are probably better developers.
yeah,
And
yeah, absolutely.
more testers should be managers, I think.
Yeah, yeah,
That
absolutely. Yeah,
it does everybody good to spend time learning about testing. So, and you want to try different things. This one career isn't right for everybody. Everybody wants different things out of life. So,
yeah, yeah.
mm.
Great. All right. So yeah, there are two more questions. Aman, how much programming knowledge and programming skills are required for automation testing? So that's, yeah,
Yeah, I mean, you
Dorothy,
need
you go ahead.
some because you are actually writing code, but it depends on the tool that you're using. It depends if you have support from other developers. I mean, testers can use it should be possible for testers and even managers to write tests easily that can then be run with a tool. You
Hmm.
shouldn't have to have great detail. If you do, then the tool is more primitive. If it is more primitive, then you do have to have programming skills in order to use the tools. But because if something, as you said before, if something goes wrong, then how are you going to put it right? Because you may need to look at the code then of the tool itself if the tool has gone wrong
Yeah,
and
yeah,
don't have any knowledge of programming. Uh, but there again, if you can get help from other people to do that, that's another
yeah,
way to do it.
yeah. I totally agree. I mean, some sort of some knowledge of programming is good,
It's
um,
useful. Mm.
is useful, and
It's useful to testers in general, anyway.
yeah,
Yeah.
because many people think that they need to be real expert programmers to become to write their scripts, and I totally
Mhm.
don't believe that. This is not,
Mhm.
because we don't need it as a tester. The more important thing is that we should be able to test it, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
And we should be able to write the scripts that can help expedite that overall process.
Mhm.
So, and for that we don't need to be expert programmers, because that undermines the overall, um, basically what we should be doing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. If you're an expert
Yeah,
programmer, you'd probably be a programmer rather than a
yeah,
tester.
yeah, rather than
You want to be an
being a
expert
tester.
tester with
Yeah,
a bit of
yeah,
knowledge of programming. Just like
right,
to be a good programmer, you should have some knowledge of testing.
that's correct. Yeah, yeah. Okay. Another question from BG. Quick questions about how would you prove your potential employer about the experience you learn from your personal studies and practices? They really want someone with cross-functional team.
Uh, hmm, Not really sure what to say about this one. To prove so you're looking for a job, so you have a potential employer, and you want to be able to show them how the experience you've had from your own um, previous work uh,
Right.
would help you to fit into a cross-functional team.
Mhm.
Um, I'm not really sure. Maybe a lot of times you could come up with like a list of things that you've done. But sometimes what's more telling and more influential is just to have a story and to say, well, there was this one time when such and such happened, and because I was able to talk to both the developers and the managers and the stakeholders as a tester, I was able to solve this problem. And just a story like that might be a better way to communicate that to the potential employer. I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. I think yes, that's the good way. Basically, whatever you have learned and your personal studies and practices, basically just portray them, explain them. This is what I have done to. So yeah, I think I totally agree to that.
And maybe not too much detail because it's easy to go into too much detail sometimes, I think.
Yeah, yeah,
Let's
yeah.
get the bird's eye view.
Hmm. Yeah. All right. Another interesting question. How much data structures and algorithms knowledge is required to learn automation?
Well, it depends what you mean by learn automation. In order to learn to use a tool, um, you need, I suppose you probably do need some knowledge about the data structures. Uh, I mean, but by algorithms, do you mean the algorithms that you're testing or the algorithms of the tool? Um, I think this is a bit of a sort of, I don't think this is a really answerable question, so at least not by me, sorry.
Yeah.
What do you have to say about it, Manish?
Yeah, I think yeah, this is more of a, like, when I think we know what he would be asking is in terms of linked list and all the detail internal working of all the data structure. There is usually a subject in India in all of the engineering streams, I think in computer science especially, and they teach all data structures, irrespective of whether you are going into IT or computer science. So they teach it. um, Now, in terms of my experience, I don't think that you need to understand so much detail in terms of data structure and algorithms as a subject. If you're referring to that engineering subject, it's good that you learn it properly in your college days, but then practically, uh, in testing, we usually don't get into too deep of internal working or the linked list. We should be able to use it, right? And there are utilities, there are APIs and all the programming languages which will help you to basically um, use all of that. It's already built in, so it's
Mhm.
basic knowledge is required. How to use it is more important rather than what is how they actually function internally. That's what I think, I feel.
I've heard people talk about T-shaped testers, where you have a shallow knowledge of many things and then a deep knowledge in the testing
That's
area.
that's correct. Yeah. So just a shallow sort of knowledge would be good enough. Yes. All right. I think we are over an hour. Um, so we'll.
Well, you certainly come up with some very interesting questions, Manish. It's been
Yeah.
a delight to talk with you, and thank you to all the people who are watching. Thank you for the questions that have come up, even if I couldn't
Yeah.
answer them.
No, it's absolutely, pleasure to have you, and I think for the viewers as well, they would have got so much confidence, and especially the people who have asked me this question again and again, like, is testing going to get over and things like that. So, so yeah, and we have another sort of you would be knowing, Selectors Hub Sanjay. You would have heard about him. So a shout out to Sanjay as well, Selectors Hub creator basically. So he's created an app, um, a plugin for the browsers to find the locators for Selenium automation
Right.
and all others. So it's providing it for free, and then I think it's a huge sort of success. So great work, Sanjay there, and yes, so great. And I think that's pretty much it. And thank you very much, Dorothy. It was a pleasure. I mean, I can't express how I am feeling, but I would love to meet you in person sometime, because when I
Mm,
started my career, when I started reading this book, I thought, who are these people, who would have written this book? And that time there was the internet was and this YouTube and all this learning. We used
mm,
to read it all from the book. So and I used to read and understand by my own. It was like, I mean, just by reading this book, I grasped so much. I was actually working in an organization in a support sort of role, and they asked me to get this certification done. And when I read this book and then tried to apply it back into my project, it made so much sense.
mm,
And that's what the all the transition point was. And basically I transitioned to testing, then moved to lead and manager sort of roles, and then that was sort of just the beginning. It has been 17 years now. So
well,
so
as an author, that just really warms my heart. So thank you very
Yeah,
much.
yeah, yeah. So this book will be there for me, and I hope I'll visit UK sometime, and definitely
Well,
definitely meet
I
you.
will be at the Eurostar conference in Copenhagen in about 3 weeks' time.
Oh
That's
yeah, okay.
the first in-person conference I've been to for 3 years.
Right. Yeah. So maybe, yeah, I think I'm not very sort of a conference person,
All
to
right.
be very frank. I haven't attended any conferences yet, Dorothy, to be very frank.
Well, I
But
have been to Melbourne, but only once, and it was a while ago.
yeah, but yeah, I think I'll start maybe just attend one or two, just to meet
Mm.
you, meet people. Uh, so yeah, let's see when I'm able to plan. But yeah, it's a absolute pleasure to see
Mm.
you, talk to you. It's sort of a dream
It'll
come
be
true
a
after.
pleasure to meet you in person as well. So let me know if you come to the UK.
Yeah, definitely. Yes, I will. I'll be in touch, and will I'll definitely get it autographed by you if I come there. All right. Cool. So thank you very much, Dorothy, and pleasure
Thank you
talking
for
to you.
inviting me.
Have a nice day.
It's a privilege. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Enjoy the rest of your day.